Yeah.
Hey guys, back at you with another movie review today. And today is the review I've been very much looking forward to, and the one I've been very much hinting at over the past few weeks. And of course, that is Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Now, talk about a movie I was very skeptical going into, to say the very least. I mean, look at my shirt. The dark red. I'm telling you, I love the original. I'm more of a fan of that than this one, but that's besides the point. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, top 5 movies, and, you know, naturally, it's like, how do you top, or even attempt to, try to do anything close to what Robert Wise and Jerome Robbins did in the original film? So that already sets me off with some reservations I have going in, but obviously it's Steven Spielberg. I mean, obviously he's one of the all-time great filmmakers, and he's never done a musical before, and it's interesting because it's like, well, if Spielberg feels passionate about this, then maybe there's hope. And the thing is, Spielberg really hasn't been on a hot streak in the past 10 years. I mean, he hasn't really been making films like he was in the 70s and 80s and 90s when he was really on that hot streak. But even so, I don't think there would be any reason for Spielberg to do this project unless he really felt passionate about it. And I know it's been out for a while, but I'm glad to say that, yes, there was a reason he did this project, and there was a reason it had to be made. And yeah, it doesn't come close to the original, I'll just say that right off the top, but man, there's some things it does so much better in many facets. One of them being the script, written by Tony Kushner. I really think that they expand on a lot of things in the original that needed to be expanded upon, and certainly adds more depth to the character, especially the arc of Tony as a character. I think is done really well, and his backstory in this movie feels very earned, unlike in the original. Well, you could say unlike in the original, but I don't really care if that film has flaws or not. I still consider it a perfect movie. Now, one thing that wasn't perfect, though, about the original film was more of a cultural thing, and of course that was the brownface, which thankfully, this is all, you know, Latino actors and actresses, and I think it's so much for the better. You know, you get that real authenticity that was lacking from the original. I mean, there's no denying that at the very least, and I just love the culture that is on display. And also, one thing that is better than the original is, man, Rachel Zegler as Maria is an improvement over Natalie Wood, who, I mean, obviously was not Hispanic, but I still feel like she was great in that role. But Rachel Zegler is just beyond radiant. There's something so otherworldly about her. She just beams off the screen. Her presence is just insane. Her vocal chops are up there to match with her acting. And it's just unbelievable. She has such a full voice, but a voice that commands your attention. It isn't just one that's technically great. It really, she brings the emotions as well, and that kind of singing, in my opinion, is some of the hardest to do. But also, I mean, you watch the scene where it's like, I Have a Love, you know, A Boy Like That, where her and Anita, plays by Ariana Debose, are singing back and forth at each other, and I can't take my eyes off her in this scene. And same goes for Ariana Debose, who, obviously, I mean, Rita Moreno in the original film is such an iconic performance. It's such a hard role to top, but even so, Anita probably is the most difficult role in West Side Story, and Ariana Debose is just dynamite in this movie. She's so charismatic, she's so sexy, everything about her just screams movie star. Same thing with Rachel Zegler, but I think Ariana Debose has a better chance of getting an Oscar nomination, which I honestly think she will. Maybe not win, but even so, she's so great in this movie. And yeah, I mean, as far as improvement goes, I can think of a couple other things. I like the hard edge of the story as opposed to the original, but I do prefer the original more, obviously, but I think the hard edge sort of grim take on the story works better for this version, and I really love that, because the Jets don't feel like these hoodlums just running around the streets singing songs. Like, they feel like an intimidating gang. And the Sharks are great too, because in this movie they don't feel like just a gang. They feel like a protector of their community. And I really love to see that. It adds more layers to that, the Jets and Sharks dynamic, and just them individually. And also, another thing some would say is an improvement on the original, though I very much prefer Russ Tamblin's kind of goofy performances riff. I mean, because he's just so charismatic, he's so fun. But Mike Faist, in some scenes, is absolutely scary as riff. I mean, yeah, he's not the biggest one in the Jets, but he has the charisma. You understand that he is their leader, and that kid isn't afraid of anything, and he just brings his own charisma to the role, and I think really succeeds in what a lot of people felt was lacking from the original. But then again, not having Russ Tamblyn in this movie, obviously he's 86 years old. I mean, you can't have him as Riff anyway, but the thing is, that Officer Krupke number, I think is terrible. I really, like, compared to the original with Russ Tamblyn and all his mannerisms that he's doing, it's just so hilarious. It falls very flat, and I do like they changed up the location, but it really does suffer compared to the original. And this is the thing, like, in some sense you can't compare it to the original, because it really isn't a remake when you think about it. It's Spielberg's take on this story that he loves. But look, you can't help comparing it sometimes to the original, especially, you know, if you have an affinity for it like I do. It's a little tough to differentiate the two of them. And I think one area where this film falls very flat, as opposed to the original, is Ansel Elgort as Tony. And that's not to say Richard Beymer was, like, the most incredible part of that movie either, but, like, the thing is, he's very inconsistent. He's not terrible, but he's very inconsistent throughout the movie. And when you get to the ending, where the emotions are really supposed to hit, it falls flat. It really does, and you really have to land that ending. Because every time I see the original, my jaw's just on the floor. How stunning it is. In this one, not so, I mean, it's still powerful, but not so much. But despite the film's minor misgivings, which really prevent me from fully loving it, I mean, there's so much to chew on. Janusz Krasinski's cinematography is some of the best I've seen all year. I think it's the best edited film. I mean, this is visually the most interesting film Spielberg has made in years. Undeniably. And if we're talking objectively, I mean, it is one of the best and well-crafted movies from 2021. But also, I mean, the rest of the cast is great too. David Alvarez is great as Bernardo. There's so many players in here. I also think the character of Chino in this movie's a step up, played by, I believe, Jose Rivera, and he really, he's more of a tragic character in this one, as opposed to the guy who's just kind of in the background as Bernardo's friend. They really make it a point to hit that home harder, and I think it really works. And of course, I mean, obviously, if we're talking about musical numbers, I mean, the choreography is stunning in this movie. Obviously, you're not getting the level of Jerome Robbins, which he directed in the original, but still, I think I forgot who the choreographer is, but they do an incredible job of bringing this to the screen once again. And of course, America's still the best number in the show. I mean, you know, how can you top that? But really, it's so cool because they kind of bring it out into the streets in this one and get the community involved. And just the dancing's so on par. Everybody's on their A game in the cast except, well, maybe Ansel Elgort. And also, I have to mention Rita Moreno in this, as like the female version of Doc, called Valentina in this one. She really brings so much to this role, and I feel like she is that genetic tissue between this one and the original, but they do a lot with her, and I think she's really great. She could even be nominated for an Oscar, but I think the competition's a little tight, so they're probably going to give it to just Ariana Debose for this movie. But seeing Rita Moreno, especially 90 years old, yet again, another living legend, and I think she just brings so much, and she's never lost that spark which made her great in the first place. So overall, I mean, going into this and being skeptical originally until I heard the reviews, I was very pleasantly surprised. This is one of those remakes that feels like it had to be made. And while I don't quite love it, I mean, there's so much I love in this movie. I can't get enough of some of these scenes. I saw it twice, and yeah, if it just weren't for that ending, I really think that this would be one of my favorite movies of the year. And so with that, I'm going to give West Side Story an 8.25. Well guys, thanks for tuning in to this review of West Side Story. I'm glad I could finally put it out there for y'all. But what did you think of West Side Story? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing here, drop a sub on my channel, smash that like button, and we'll see you again in the next video.